All right, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, fresh off a rough, rough Thursday night football game for the Green Bay Packers. I had Detroit picked to win, but I did think it would be somewhat of a close game, and Detroit won, and it was nowhere near a close game. Game started out great for Green Bay right off the bat. Intercepted Jared Goff, took it into the. I mean, they were barely out of the red zone when he got the interception. Ran it into the red zone, and the play calling for Green Bay's offense was terrible. And it was three straight passes. Love got sacked on one of them, and we kicked a field goal, so it's 3-0. And then Detroit proceeded to score 27 straight points. At one point in the third quarter, it was 27-3. It was ridiculous. At the end of the first quarter, Green Bay had one net yard, and at halftime, I think they might have barely been in double-digit net yards. I mean, it was embarrassing. And the play, like I said I've said it in previous videos. LaFleur needs to do a better job play calling early in games and getting some consistency and some rhythm and some flow on offense. I mean, that's 101. Like, you have a new quarterback, you've got to get him in a rhythm early. So the passes, it needs to be screen passes, short dump off passes, check downs, whatever. Send the running back out of the backfield. Just get him a few completions and get an easy or cheap first down or two and get some flow to the offense. Because the play calling, like I said, in like Chicago, we had a quarter or two where we had like no real flow to the offense and really didn't do anything. And then Atlanta, same thing. Um, First quarter, no consistency, no flow, no rhythm on offense. Second, third quarter, it was clicking. Fourth quarter, nothing. And then first three quarters against New Orleans, nothing. And then fourth quarter, it was clicking. And then last night, until midway through the third, really didn't even see anything starting to take shape on offense. And essentially every bit of the yards and points we got last night were all garbage time. Uh, I mean, midway through the third quarter, we made it. We got a touchdown, 2-point conversion, made the score 27-11, and then early to mid fourth quarter, we got another touchdown, missed 2-point conversion, so it was 27-17. And then at that point, Detroit kicked a field goal. Quay Walker had another mental error and gave them a first down. They punched it in for a TD, made it 34-17. And then we were down on the Detroit side of the field, knocking on the door of the red zone and getting another touchdown. Love threw an interception, his second of the night. And then from there, we got the ball back and kicked a field goal, and final score 34-20. But we ran the ball 12 times. Two of them were Jordan Love runs, but beyond that, 10 runs to the running backs, 5 to Aaron Jones, 5 to A.J. Dillon. And we accumulated a grand total of 27 yards. Love had -2. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combined for 29 rush yards. That's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I get that your two best offensive linemen are not playing, but if you're run the ball to the opposite side of the line, like, do something. Like, you've got to call better plays, and you've got to get a young offense in a rhythm. I mean, the offense is the second youngest offense in the NFL, so you've got to do something to get them going early in games. And for the defense was pure terrible. I mean, Jared Goff he essentially had 210 yards passing. I mean, the stat line for the game shows 190 because he did get sacked twice, but they ran for 211 yards on us. Green Bay is averaging giving up 155 yards per game on the ground. I know we've played one more game than everybody else in the league right now, but yards per game wise, that's second worst in the league. The only team that's worse is the Broncos, and that's because they let Miami run wild on them last week. Had that not happened, we would have the worst run defense in the NFL. I've said I'm not impressed with Joe Barry. It's year 3. We have like 8 first-round draft picks on our defense. We've got the talent, and it's not playing up to the level that they were drafted. They're not playing up to expectations. And defensive wise, like, what are we doing? Like, we're not slowing anyone down in the pass game, and we're not slowing anyone down in the run game. Like, teams haven't thrown a lot on us because they haven't had to. What did Atlanta do to us all second half of their game? They just ran it down our throats. What did Detroit do all night last night? Ran it down our throats. I mean, this is ridiculous. So, um, yeah, I wasn't real impressed with the game plan last night. I wasn't impressed with coaching on offense or defense. I've been kind of fed up with Joe Barry. Uh, really, it's been an issue the whole time we've had him. I mean, he does not have a good track record as defensive coordinator before coming to us. I know he was on a coaching staff with Matt LaFleur, and they were buddies. And I mean, it appears he hired him because he knew him, but that was a mistake. Joe Barry's defense has been trash. Like, we haven't been good at anything on defense since he's taken over. I mean, we've been decent on pass defense, but that's because we have really good playmakers in the secondary. But our run defense has been trash since he took over, and he's not doing anything to help it. And when we do add people to the box or commit extra people to the run, we can't stop people from passing on us. So Joe Barry is a major liability, and the defense is definitely going to have to play much better if we're going to win ball games and be competitive in the NFC North. Not even going to say in the NFC, because we can't. We with our run defense, if we met up with San Francisco or Philly, they would not throw a single pass. They wouldn't have to throw a single pass on us. Like, they would just dominate us in the trenches. Like, it'd be ridiculous. So, and offensively, like, I think LaFleur is a good coach. I think he's a good head coach. I think he's a good play caller for the most part. But even with Aaron Rodgers and even in his 2 MVP years, there were times down the stretch in games where his play calling just didn't make sense. And then, like, the offense would lose. They would before that they would have great rhythm, and then all of a sudden his play calling would go to shit, and they would lose their rhythm. And basically let teams kind of come back on us. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, he's got to do a better job play calling. And I'm not saying he's a bad play caller, but it's just he needs to understand, like, you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. You don't have that Hall of Famer that can check out of plays at the line based on what he sees, and can say, like, all right, that's not the right play for this situation. That's not the right read for this defense. We're going to do this. Love's not there yet. So you've got to do a much better job on your play calling and on your offensive game plan to get this offense going early, because if it can't get going early and the defense struggles, we're just going to dig ourselves into a massive hole like we did last week, like we did last night. And last week we were lucky enough to dig ourselves out. Last night we weren't. And we've got some good teams coming down the stretch that we're fixing to be playing. I mean, we're going to play in a week and a half. We're playing the Raiders. That's a winnable game. Broncos after that, winnable game. But then we have the Vikings, who have one of the a very good offense. I mean, they're Kirk Cousins is leading the NFL in yards and touchdowns, I believe. The Rams, pretty good offense. They should have Cooper Kupp by then. The Steelers, their offense is kind of shaky, but their defense is super good, so their offense is not going to have to do much against us. The Chargers, good offense. The Lions again. The Chiefs, good offense. The Giants, not so good much. Buccaneers, not so much. Panthers, not so much. Vikings again, good offense. Bears, trash. So we've got like 3, maybe 4 games the rest of the year where we're not playing offenses that are just going to shred our defense. So Joe Barry, as far as I'm concerned, you should be on the hot seat right now, and something needs to be done. Like, some major changes need to be done on defense. So, um, So far for the week, I am 1-0 on my game picks because I did have Detroit pick last night. And I've already kind of talked about a few of the matchups this weekend. We do have the big matchup, the premier matchup, in my opinion, between Buffalo and Miami. We have the cripple fight, two worst teams in the league basically playing each other in Chicago and Denver. But outside of that, I think there's a few college matchups that should be pretty decent. I'll pull those up in a second, but uh, one thing I will say, to the Lions' credit, the Lions are. I mean, I had them picked preseason to win the division, and they are looking very much like the team that's going to win it. Jared Goff is looking very much like a top 10 quarterback, maybe top 8, top 7. Um, he has turned the ball over once in the last. He has thrown an interception in the last 3 games after going 10 games without one, but he's getting the job done. Like, he bounced back from that early interception last night immediately, made a couple great throws on the next drive and took them down for a touchdown. Dan Campbell has this team turned around. The mentality, these are not the Bears that are not the Bears. These are not the Lions that have a chance to win a game and then fumble it away or give it away. Like, the majority of the time that I've watched football, what the Lions would do is they would have a game in hand. They would have victory in sight, and they would snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. Like, they would just, a game that they had no business losing, they'd lose. And it was week after week after week, year after year after year. This is not that team anymore. This is a team that can play good. They can play solid defense. They can play good offense. They can get leads. They can hold on to them, and they can grind out games. Like, the mentality of this team and their attitude, it's much different. So kudos to Dan Campbell for turning the team around. Kudos to Jared Goff for coming to Detroit. And everybody kind of thought he was done, like he was overrated when he left the Rams. Like, if McVay's done with him, like, he's nothing. And he's turned around and proved that at this point, I think he's a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford is. I think the Lions won that trade 100%. And that's not to say the Rams lost the trade, because they did get a Super Bowl out of it, but longevity wise, and which guy's playing better and which guy is better through the first 2 or 3 years after that trade, Jared Goff, and the Lions are winning that. Um, Other big news. Let's see. Kind of hit on golf. Uh, the bad news for the Packers, they put David Bakhtiari on IR, so he's going to miss a few games. He's definitely our best lineman, so hopefully we can get at least Elton Jenkins back sometime in the next game or two, because we kind of need him. But college football wise, since that's coming up tomorrow, tonight we have Utah and Oregon State. That is number 10 and number 19 playing, so that should be a pretty decent game. Obviously, everyone's talking about USC and Colorado tomorrow. Big Pac-12 matchup. USC's the spread's minus 21.5, so I don't see Colorado hanging around in this game. This is going to be a second blowout loss for Coach Sanders, and I mean, I think this just goes to show that there's no real substance behind what they're doing just yet. Like, yes, he's in a similar situation what Dan Campbell was when he come to Detroit. Like, he's brought a lot of attention and a lot of PR to the program, and that in turn is going to bring a lot of money to the program. That in turn allows them to get TV time, which is more money, and then help get some of these players with NLI deals and all that. So it is they're in the beginnings of taking the right steps to get the program back on track. But I mean, they'll probably have 5, 6, 7 wins this year, but ultimately they're not going to be a good team this year. Like, they never should have been ranked as high as they were before last week. I thought it was premature to rank them that high, and now you're about to see them like I said, they're going to get blown out tomorrow by USC, so it's going to be 2 blowout losses in a row. And I kind of think the hype around them is going to quiet down. And like I said, they'll still win quite a few games, but I think you're going to quit seeing them being major headlines after this week. Um, another big matchup will be somewhat of a big matchup will be Kansas versus Texas. Texas number 3 undefeated, Kansas number 24 undefeated. That'll be a good Big 12 matchup. And I believe this is the last game that Texas plays before playing Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry next weekend. Yes, and that'll be a big ranked game for Texas. Outside of that, I think the only ranked team as of now might be Kansas State. So, and I'm not even sure if Kansas State is still ranked. I know they were, but ultimately, if Texas wins this week, wins next week, they should um, not necessarily be on cruise control to win the Big 12, but they should be very much so in the driver's seat and have control of the Big 12 unless they fumble it away. Another big matchup tomorrow is number 13 LSU against number 20 Ole Miss. Should be a decent game, SEC matchup. And Alabama's playing Mississippi State. Mississippi State unranked. Alabama's number 12. And that's kind of it for the college football weekend. So at least we have a few good games to watch tomorrow. At least 1 or 2 good games Sunday with 1 or 2 cripple fights. That would be, again, the Broncos and Bears and the Vikings Panthers, all 4 teams winless. So I'll get back on here tomorrow or Sunday morning. If I do Sunday morning, it'll be early because we have the London game, Atlanta and Jacksonville. And I'll throw up my game picks for the rest of the week, and we'll catch y'all then.